but I knew how to adjust.
Right.
And that's been one of the things that I grew up learning was I don't have to wait for everything to be perfect because all the preparation I've done up to this point has prepared me to know how to adjust how much, when and where, when I need to.
Well, I had a thought along those lines. One of the biggest questions that I started asking myself 10, 15 years ago, I had came to the belief that belief was everything. But what happens whenever you know that belief is everything, but you still don't believe? You know? Right. And that puzzled me for the longest damn time about how do you get around that conundrum. And I finally, just within the last year or so, came upon the idea of, you just imagine that it has already happened and you keep on playing that imagining over and over again in your mind until whenever you think about that subject or object that you desire, until whenever you think about that, this one picture comes completely to mind and it becomes so familiar, it starts to be like it's already happened. And that's the biggest thing that I've got from the Neville Goddard stuff is belief is a really important part. But believing that it has already happened is the key.
Right. To have that emotional experience of it having happened.
Right. Right. Because that somehow that trips our subconscious. And then the subconscious goes about producing that for us.
Well, it can be shown as well in circumstances where I've heard people say, right, I know this is true and I know you're right, but I just don't feel it.
Right.
And so...
And that's true.
It's still true for them.
Yeah.
And they still live their life and circumstances still occur that prove to them that they're right.
Right.
And so the reverse can be true as well, where it's not physically manifest yet, but people can still have that emotional experience of, oh, this is it. And we've all known people like that. All the most creative people are like that. Well, to paint a picture, you have to have that belief already.
Right. Yeah, you have to have the entire image in your mind in order to create it. And of course,
right.
I was involved in custom gun making and engraving for many years, and that was something that I had to do. Was before I started to build a gun, I had to sketch the whole thing out in my mind first and then transfer it to paper in order to look at it and be able to see the lines and did I like the lines and that sort of thing on it. And did I have enough room in the size of it to get all the parts and pieces that had to go in there in order to make it function.
Right.
And it's the same way with machining. You've been trained as a machinist, and you have to have a really crystal clear idea of not only what the finished object looks like, but what are all the steps that you have to go through to get that? And equally as important as all the steps is the order of the steps. I remember one time when I was learning to run a lathe, I had worked for a couple of days trying to get everything. This was a multi-cut process. And I just spent all kinds of time getting it dialed in. I used a 4-jaw chuck and could dial it in, to within a half a thousandth of an inch. And I did all of those things. I spent a couple of days on the project. I finished up one cut, and I thought, okay, well, I don't need that. I don't need that anymore. And I cut the damn thing off, and as soon as I cut it off, I went, oh, no. man, it was the part that I needed to hold on to for 3 or 4 operations down the line.
Yeah.
I didn't need it for the next step, but boy, I needed it for a couple other steps after that. And of course, at that point in time, there's a whole bunch of cursing and that sort of stuff, and you throw it in the trash, or I never threw steel in the trash. I just threw it in the repurposed bin.
Well, today we talked about being present at Toastmasters. That was the theme of the day. And yesterday, while I was out shooting my new rifle there, because I put 86 rounds through it, it was the first time I had sat down with a rifle and actually sighted one in. Because all the guns I'd always shot before were already just
right.
done.
Yeah,
just
sure.
go out and bang them. And it was really fun being there and knowing what to do if I didn't get the result I wanted. And one of the things that I've been warned of before a few times, and I've been hearing about it recently, is some people won't leave the house to start a trip until all of the lights along the way are green.
Right.
And it's like, well, that's not how you have a trip. And I didn't know what I would need to adjust when or where, but I knew how to adjust.
Right.
And that's been one of the things that I grew up learning was I don't have to wait for everything to be perfect, because all the preparation I've done up to this point has prepared me to know how to adjust how much, when, and where when I need to. And to be there shooting the gun, and I recognized I shook the most on the inhale.
Mm-hmm.
On the exhale was very smooth.
Mm-hmm. And
when I pulled the trigger was right before my exhale finished.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that was my most
right. One of the things
moment
that I learned in shooting bench rest competition was to only press the trigger between heartbeats. And it takes a lot of concentration in order to feel your heart. And of course, one of the things is you learn how to slow your heartbeat down so that you have a longer... you have a longer time in there to press the trigger. And, if in bench rest competition, if you shoot a group that is half again the size of the bullet, if you shoot 5 shots and the group is half again the size of a bullet, like from 30 caliber, it would move to 45, the hole. If you can't do that, you might as well just save your entrance money, because you're not going to be there.
Right.
There was a guy in Texas just a couple of years ago that broke the international bench rest record, and he shot, I forget whether it was 5 or 10. I forget what size in bench rest competition. Sometimes there's 5-shot groups, sometimes there's 10. But whatever, he shot 5 bullets that were 30 caliber, 308 diameter of the bullet, and the hole that was left was 378. No, that's wrong. It was 7 thousandths bigger, so it was 315. 308 bullets going through, making a hole that was only 315 wide. I mean,
Wow.
It was not only an amazing rifle and a good load and all that stuff, but he was having a lucky day.
That's some good shooting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he was definitely skilled. There was no doubt about that. But boy, he was having a lucky day too.
Well, just being being able to reach out and touch things, to hit what I was shooting at, and also to enjoy doing it alone. And it's one of those strange things where the last few years I've been less and less interested in doing things alone, like my trips and some of these other hobbies I have. But at the same time, there are a lot of things that I'm not only happy doing alone, but some things I prefer to do alone. But also being able to just, go out and enjoy something being alone and being engaged in the process, being present, and just having the intention of having a good time, learn, figure things out. You gave me some tips and things before I went out, and just being able to enjoy that. It was one of my most fun afternoons that I've had in a while.
Right. And one of the things that caused you to have so much fun was that there was another kid there about your age for you to play with.
Right.
And one of the things I've learned is that no matter who a shooter is, they can't be all bad.
Right. And I shot his guns, he shot my guns.
There you go.
And,
there you go. You know each other for 3 minutes, and the guy's turning a $3,500 rifle over to you.
Right. And that's the thing. I just had I was out there for about 2 hours, and about half an hour of it was interactions with him. I just took a break and went on by and asked him what he was shooting, and we had a nice little time. And it was because I had the vision of buying the rifle. I had kind of an idea what I wanted, and then as I saw more, I got more and more of an idea of what I liked and what I didn't like. And it all just worked out, and had to have that emotion because I was not in need.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't in lack. I wasn't in an area of wanting. I have guns to shoot, but I wanted a specific gun in a specific round. And it was just, I knew it had happened, and I dreamed about shooting a gun the night before. I bought it. No, I dreamed about it the night I bought it. And being aware of what's actually important to me, and I found that when I think about a thing and I can't let it go for a week or 10 days,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I'll then start to get after it. If it's something that's could be life-changing or is a pricey purchase or a big move on that, then, but if it's a thing that I forget about and don't think about it again for a month, it's not that important to begin
Mm-hmm.
with. And that's been a huge thing, is as much as I enjoy being flexible and open, that's different from being impulsive.
Right.
And it's been a fun process. And
one of the experiences that I've had just in the last week was talking to a guy that is a realtor, and he was explaining to me why he didn't want to go to any real estate seminars, and the reason was that he thought that the person up there teaching the seminar was looking down on him because he didn't want to do what that guy did in order to make the sale. And it's a moving away from attitude. Instead of him moving toward being, a more competent, better realtor and increase his income in that field, he's moving away. He doesn't want these emotional feelings of, I'm not good enough and that sort of thing, or it's too painful. And if I was his boss, I'd only be his boss for a few more minutes. we'd have a parting of the ways.
Well, if it were in a way of like, you know what, I'm not going to go this route because I don't like that guy because there's some sort of violation of my rules. But I found this guy, and he seems to line up with me, so I'm going to go learn from him.
Right. Oh,
That's
yeah, that's
a
important.
whole different process.
Yeah. Right.
Of whereas, I went and saw 3 guys, and I don't like them, screw them, and I'm not going back. Okay, well, you just put a kibosh on your entire career.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to move and grow with us, then you need to find a different career, apparently.
Right, yeah.
So it's just missing out on an entire half of a process. And I see a lot of people doing that. And I've done it myself too, where I do a thing and do a thing and do a thing. And then a few years would go by and I was like, oh, I was missing half of it. Like, right, I was right in my assessment, but I was wrong to just stop there instead of asking questions, or instead of going, okay, if that's not what I'm doing, where do I adjust? Instead, I was just put off.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, yeah, I was missing half of the process there. But in this book, the next chapter starts with, life does not care whether you call yourself rich or poor, strong or weak. It will eternally reward you with that which you claim is true of yourself. The measurements of right and wrong belong to man alone. To life there is nothing right or wrong. And it was a bit like when Troy first popped open the book, and each thing was like, oh wow, there's this, and then the next part, oh wow, that, oh yeah, and then the next part, oh yeah, that's important for me.
Right.
This book is full of those things that absolutely apply to someone who's looking for the way. They aren't looking to prove themselves right. They're looking for right. They're looking for truth. They're looking for the harmony, the way.
Right.
They're not just looking for validation for
Mm-hmm.
what they already believe and to support their own prejudice.
Right.
And that belief there of, life will always support you in what you believe. Some people get so upset about that because, oh, are you saying it's my fault? No, your responsibility. Sure, because you're the only one who has the ability to respond for the circumstances in your life.
Right.
And I personally take comfort in that.
Yeah.
And I've become really allergic to people who have more complaints than solutions.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're hard for me to take too.
Well, it's just
and I realize that they just are where they are, and me being upset about where they are isn't going to change where they are.
right.
And I don't like the feeling of being upset, so as soon as I get out of the way, I make sure
Stay
I
out of
wash
the
my
way.
hands and brush my teeth and all that kind of stuff, and just get away from them.
Well, that's the thing, like when we have our little breakfast and we talk to our friends, I talk to you, someone will have a problem and multiple people will have multiple solutions.
Yeah.
And the people who don't come or have stopped coming to our breakfast are people who have multiple problems for a single solution.
Right. Yeah.
And where it's just
Right.
and it's just some people operate in different ways, and that's just the way it is. And sometimes when it just rubs them the wrong way to be around us.
Right. And that's how these juntos work is, you try to start one, and then the people that you invite, maybe they'll be there for a meeting or two or whatever, but you start to realize what they're saying and how they're perceiving things. And I can tell you right now, all the people like in our Toastmasters group who wouldn't be uh, someone who would benefit
Right.
from our discussions. I mean,
Right.
they're trapped. They know they're trapped. They hate being trapped, but they work.
It sure as hell beats being around us.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Right. And, they're still nice folks, and I'm glad they're in our club and get along with them just fine. It's just when we have these meetings, like when we start this little, I don't know, book club or what it is we will be doing. It's just going to be a handful of people there too.
Right.
And
even
just
some of them
who,
will weed themselves out.
Right, where it's just not the right time, not the right place. That occurs. Like it was 8 years from the time I bought to the time I read Think and Grow Rich.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's a book that's affected a lot of people's lives, and I read that book in 1969, and it is the reason why I live in Idaho now, because I did the exercise of writing down everything that twinkled for me, and then you keep on working that list over and over and over again until you get the top 5 that keep on coming up into the top 5 every time, and then you take number 1 and you get at it. And number 1 for me was hunting elk, and I was living in New York State, and that required a move.
Right.
And a couple months later, I was in Idaho, and boy, let me tell you, it was the best move I ever made. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It was just, I will be thankful for that forever and ever and ever.
For sure, man. Well, I think that's good.
There's a point I just thought of. Mm-hmm. Whenever you're trying to get this feeling of the wish already fulfilled, if you think about things like I just touched it in myself, that feeling of being so grateful, and then I think of, oh, now I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for this new house that I'm going to build. I'm grateful for my health.
You then tie that into all of the
you tie that
rest of the things.
Bridge those emotions across.
Right. Great. Well, thanks, man. I think that's a great place to wrap this up. And
okay.
I appreciate your time, and thanks for sharing, and we'll do this again soon.
Yep, you're welcome.
Great. Thanks, man.